So let's start this evening by centering ourselves. Satsang, it really means the gathering of the wise, or the gathering of people who share wisdom. And wisdom comes from, not from the mind, not from the past or the future, it comes from presence. So we start our satsangs by always invoking the presence, by inviting presence into our awareness. And we can do this open-eyed or we can do it closed-eyed. I prefer to close my eyes and bring my attention from the outside world into the only place that's directly connected to reality, and that's my senses within me. So you might like to shut your eyes, just settle back, see that you've made yourself comfortable, and take a very deep breath in. The breath is a powerful way of centering the awareness in the present moment. And the most important part of the breath is the out breath, believe it or not. So just let the air out. Take another very deep breath in, and then a very long surrendering out breath. You might like to relax your shoulders, your neck muscles. I'm sure you've had lots of experiences today. You might like to shrug them off, let them go for a moment, and just focus on the here and now, the only place that's real. Take another very deep breath in. Take it right down to your toes this time, up to the top of the head, and then that lovely long surrendering breath out. And just relax back into the chair or bed or floor, whatever you're sitting or lying on. And just surrender with the out breath all other times and all other places, and just be here now. Such a simple statement, be here now. It opens us up to a world of peace beyond the comprehensions of the mind. So just focus again on your physical body. We focused on the breath, and the breath is best taken in through the nostrils, the in and out. So just focus your attention on the nostrils right now and allow life to breathe you. Allow the rhythm of life to be breathed through your body in a gentle in and the out breath. But keep your attention and your focus on that rhythm. Whenever there is stress in your life, it is said that it only takes 3 conscious breaths to bring you out of the state of stress and back into alignment with life, which is presence, and in that we find ease and stillness. As we become aware of the other senses of the body, we have a sense of touch, so just feel where your hands are touching right now. Become aware of your fingertips. Become aware of your palms of your hands. Become aware of your feet, where your feet are resting right now. And become aware of where your body is seated on a chair or floor or bed or couch. Become aware of the sensations coming into your body from your hands, your feet, your back, your buttocks. Feel that coming into your awareness simultaneously. Become aware of any sounds that are reaching your eardrums right now. You can hear my voice, and what else can you hear? Focus on a faint sound. Maybe you can hear the whir of a computer fan or laptop fan, or maybe you can hear the sound of an appliance running in the background, or any outside noises. Without labeling them, just become the receiver of that information coming through your eardrums. And then just inquire whether it is your education that's aware of the sounds. Is it your personality? Is it your gender, your age? Or is there something transcendental behind all of that? that's aware. It's just an awareness that's aware. If you step back, you might like to just try that, stepping back into being. Step back into just the awareness of this moment, here and now. You might be aware of thoughts passing through your awareness. Don't attach yourself to those thoughts, just allow them to pass through you. Be aware of them, but do not identify with them. Just allow them to drift on by without following them out of the present moment. Just being aware of the gentle rhythm of life as it breathes you, of the sounds you can hear, and the sensations coming in to your body from the sensations of touch. Become aware of the spaces between your thoughts, the quiet emptiness that underlies all thinking, all perceiving. And in the quiet spaces between our thoughts, we find there's a sensation of opening, of expanding. In the space between our thoughts, there's an expanded awareness of timeless presence. We feel our hearts opening and embracing life in this moment. No judgments necessary, no boundaries. Just the awareness of this moment here and now. And notice as we open our hearts what it feels like to be here now. You might like to take another very deep breath in and a long breath out. And for a moment just feel what it feels like to be centered in the awareness of the body and the breath. To be the witness to all the sensations that are coming into your conscious awareness. Resting in the body and not reaching for any other time and any other place, but just being here now. Take another very deep, soft in-breath. And then a lovely, long, gentle out-breath. And if you have your eyes closed, you may gently open them and see how you feel in this moment. How do you feel? How do you feel?
Thanks, John.
Pleasure. Hello to all those that joined when my eyes were closed. Hello to you. Good evening from South Africa. Maybe it's morning where you are, but it's evening here.
If you've just joined, please just tell us who you are and where you're from, so we know who we're speaking to. Otherwise, we're just speaking into the ether.
The ether.
It's nice to know who we're chatting to.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Evening. So we're going to be talking tonight about discernment, but before we do that, what's happening in the
Well, that's
in the
kind of
stars?
quite a strong theme, because at the moment we've got a lot of watery energy around, which is very intuitive and very it can be very connected, but it can also feel a bit confusing. So there's a huge amount of energy in the sign of Pisces, and Mars is in Cancer. It's just gone direct, and so there's a lot of that can relate to confusion and not knowing what's up next, and a little bit of overwhelm. So we just thought that discernment might be a nice one to talk about. because it's kind of a more grounded energy, and it also connects with one of the main, the destiny axis that we have in our charts at the moment as well. So it's definitely helping us to do that, is to discern what and how do we discern. We just thought it'd be nice to talk about that.
With all these challenging energies out there, what's happening on the world stage? How's it influencing the world stage at the moment? All these planets. What are we likely to experience in the near future with all these planets?
I think a lot of information is coming out. A lot of untruths are being exposed. A lot of stuff that's been underneath the surface and not known has actually it's emerging. So I think that's also sending people into a little bit of a state of confusion as well, because what they thought was real isn't, and what they thought might be true isn't. They might be realizing it isn't true. So I think there's also that. There's a kind of confusion about which way is the world going, which way are the politics going in different countries, not just South Africa, but the States, the UK. So I think we're just going through one of those stages where it almost feels like we're between worlds, where the old world is no longer relevant and is no longer working, and the new world or the new earth is not fully developed yet. So I think that is quite a confusing state if you look at the human part of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because many of us grew up in a time where we believed the media, for example, and we believed figures of authority. I mean, they had our best interest at heart, and they told the truth, we thought. And in the last few years, we've discovered that no, generally we have been deceived a lot of the time through vested interests in the control of information, for example. And I remember Noam Chomsky writing a book. His most famous book is Manufactured Consent. So basically, it turns out that the media is not a means of communicating truth to us. It's rather a medium that's used to manipulate perception to get consent for humanity to walk in a certain direction. And that is very disturbing for a lot of people to find out that that basically we have been lied to a lot of the time. And then how do we discern? Because there's so much disinformation, misinformation, malinformation is another word that's get thrown around these days. How do we discern what is true from false? How do we discern where we personally get to make a decision in our life, whether to turn left or turn right? These are all the things that I think that are creating a lot of disturbance and confusion in people's lives right now.
Yeah, and I think also, I've spoken about it in my videos, and we've spoken about it online before, with this new, well, let's just call it the AI and the tech world doing what it's doing, particularly with AI. It's actually quite difficult to see what's true and what's not true. So, I mean, you can make a video of someone that looks like it's the real person. You can make a voice recording of someone and change the words and get them to speak Spanish when they're English speaking, and nobody would know the difference. So how do we discern? Where do we get the discernment from? Because what you see isn't necessarily what's true. So we've all seen the deep fakes that are going around, and it's now becoming more accessible for people just with a cell phone to actually make a deep fake video, photograph. So that's going to become more pronounced with Pluto and Aquarius, because that is power through technology. So it can be used for good, absolutely. It can be used to get information, absolutely. But where do we find our discernment from? So if you think about sort of the older days, and obviously we know about the older days.
Because we're dinosaurs.
We're dinosaurs. You would have to figure something out. You'd have to look at something and say, how do I work this? How do I get it working? And now you just type it in, and something tells you what to do, gives you the information. So it's not something that you're actually processing your way through anymore in many respects. Now you're just getting an answer, or you're getting an answer to your question or to your problem or whatever it is. But is it actually an answer that resonates with you? Where's it coming from? Is there any truth to it? So I think that it's going to become more and more important for us to find our discernment, which is it's a deeper knowing, actually, discernment. It's not based just on facts.
Yeah, because whose facts are you
Yeah.
taking?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
science.
Who's
Yeah, trust the science. Well, we learned that. No, you can't trust the science because there isn't the science. It's just a scientific perspective.
And there could be
And
this perspective and that perspective.
And there are many, many different scientific perspectives on the universe and on life. You mentioned earlier, I think you said that it's Pluto in Aquarius, right? So just for me, the ignorant one, what does Pluto in Aquarius mean? What is Pluto and what is Aquarius?
So Pluto is the planet of transformation, and it's connected with our evolution as a species. And for the last 20 years, it's been going through the sign of Capricorn, which is very much about our information and the rulership of the governments, the top-down structures, the very big corporations that are in charge. When it moves into, it's a very big move because it takes 248 years to go around the whole zodiac, which means that for the last 18 years, it's been going through this Earth sign of Capricorn. Which is where the control has grown of the top-down governments and the top-down corporations. So now as it moves into Aquarius, because it's the planet of power and transformation, there's basically a shift in its energy, and it'll spend 20 years in the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius is connected with technology. So anything, I mean, this online platform that we're on would be an Aquarian place because it's a broadcast. So anything broadcast, anything technological, AI is definitely under the symbolism of Aquarius. So when Pluto moves into Aquarius, we have never experienced it before because we've never been alive in this incarnation whilst that's happened, because the last time it happened was 248 years ago. But the kinds of things that have happened have been the French Revolution, the American Revolution. I mean, the French Revolution, they stormed the Bastille. The people stood up and said, no, we want our power back. So there's a lot of different elements to it, but one of the elements that we have probably not experienced before is, with this move, is the advent of AI and robotics and that kind of thing, because it's going very, very fast. So we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. What we do know is that we have to work with it because it's part of our lives. But how do we then discern what's true and what's not true? And so I feel that with everything else happening astrologically, and which is energetically basically, that we're being called to find the truth from a deeper place, not from the media, not from somebody telling you that this is the truth. It's got to come from something deeper, which is true discernment. Yeah.
And the thing that's been sort of most manipulated and is now most confused about all the differing points of views that we're facing in the world is generally the mind. It's the mind that tries to navigate its way from falsehood to truth by understanding and by using its judgment, hot from cold, up from down, left from right, for example. And that's been the way that we have, as a civilization, as a species, lived for a long, long time. And I remember many years ago giving talks about this transformation that we're doing, and I said the one thing that you have to give up is your sense of identity to the linear logical process of information as a self, as a sense of self. Now, a lot of people gain their self-worth from their intellect. In other words, if you're able to process information fairly rapidly and fairly logically, you tend to be higher paid and people look up to you. So you get a sense of social self-worth in that field. And I was speaking many years ago, before 2012, and I said, well, that's about to all change. And it didn't seem that way in the beginning, but by now we can definitely see that the linear logical process of information is being handled by machines, by AI, for example, at the moment. and that level of intelligence way exceeds the brain's ability in its linear information processing ability. And I mean, you can get the AI to write you a whole book in a few seconds actually now, where a human mind will take a long time to process that information. You can get AI to write code, computer code, which would take a normal technician many days to write, and the AI can write it in a few seconds. So that type of way of perceiving your value in your world and of perceiving reality in the world is changing rapidly. And that is the mind. That's particularly what we might generalize and say it's the left hemisphere of the brain, which is that linear analytical processing of information. And then we have the right side of the brain, which I generally say is more creative. And that again seems to be usurped by AI. AI seems to, from what I saw something the other day, that over 50% of the music coming out now is AI music. And if you look at the graphics that are coming through, it's just so easy to do it. And movies. I saw a movie clip the other day, it's completely AI. No actors, they look real, but they're not. They're not real humans. So even from a creative point of view, it seems that AI is usurping the mind. But there's something beyond that. There's something transcendent. So all of that we've just spoken about now can be seen on what's called the horizontal plane, the plane of time, because the logical process of information requires time. And you might say, but there's only time. Now, Einstein spoke about the 4 dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time. And they seem to interlock. In other words, you can't have space without time, and you can't have time without space. And yet we know from quantum physics that there are other dimensions. And I believe that we are now shifting from the 4th dimension into the 5th dimension. Or let's just say that the door is now open for us to perceive the 5th dimension. The 5th dimension has always been here. But we've been so caught up, so enamored with the movie of life, with the story of life, that we haven't seen through the illusions that the mind has created, and we have ignored the 5th dimension. The 5th dimension is the way I describe it in my map of the matrix. Is the 4th dimension is the horizontal plane, 3 of space, 1 of time, and the 5th dimension is the vertical plane. It's when you drop into presence. It's the timeless place of your being. So this is the human, and this is the being. And it is in being that we connect with something transcendent of the judgmental mind. And that is what we would call, in the West, we would call it maybe our intuition. And discernment, true discernment, is when you are able to intuit at a deeper level than the information in your head, truth from falsehood, right from wrong. It's that deep inner discernment here that comes from a feeling in our chest rather than a thought process in the head. So judgment comes out of the mind's ability to process information, where discernment comes from this deeper sense, maybe in the heart, if you want to call it that, your gut feel, maybe there's something we can talk about there, but definitely it comes from the vertical plane, because true discernment comes through the space between our thoughts, which we looked at in the opening meditation, where judgment definitely comes from your thoughts, our thoughts. And that's how do we differentiate the difference between a judgmental mind and discernment.
Yeah, and I think we're being very supported energetically with this as well. So every year we have 2 eclipse seasons, and we have now moved into the eclipse seasons that are going to be related to the axis of Virgo and Pisces. And the north node of the moon, which is the destiny node, is actually in the sign of Pisces, which is about this exactly thing. That's this exact thing that John's speaking about. It's not diminishing the mind, not at all. It's not saying we don't have a mind. You have a mind, but this is about us moving towards, because you move towards the north node, it's astrology. It's about us moving more towards the inner discernment, the intuitive knowing that at any one point we can actually connect with this vertical plane and have a knowing that this is the way I'm going. It's not a backwards and forwards ping pong match. It's not saying should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I.
Mm.
When you know, you know. There's no, somebody can be standing in front of you and saying you're mad, and you'll still do it because you know that is your direction that you need to move in. So it's a more intuitive knowing. But the problem comes from when the mind is so busy that we cannot discern that because we're not in that present state. So we're so caught up with the different parts of the left, the right, the good, the bad, the maybe, the should, all of that that's going on, that we actually can't see through it. We can't cut through that. So when we talk about going into presence and going into the vertical plane, that's what we're saying. We're saying just to find space that isn't going backwards and forwards. Because the mind's going backwards and forwards all the time, and the more that we slow down and actually connect with this inner knowing, the less the pendulum swings so wildly. And the quicker we can actually come back into our knowing, our true knowing. And that is something we're going to be working with a lot over the next 18 months because it's the eclipse cycle. So all the eclipses are going to be happening on that axis because that's how astrology and the new moon and the full moon work. So we're going to be working with this theme of, is it my mind just going backwards and forwards, or is it actually the truth as I feel it, as I know it? So it's discernment at a very deep level. It's not just the mind. It's coming from a deeper, higher place than the superficial, rational mind.
Well, the rational mind is a wonderful tool. I mean, it really, it's fantastic. It was created. Cell phones, nuclear weapons, it's marvelous. But it is extremely limited in wisdom. Very, very limited in wisdom. We have the different intelligences, many different intelligence. We know about IQ. We also know about EQ, emotional intelligence. But the highest intelligence is SQ, which is spiritual intelligence. Now, spirit, the way that I see spirit, is that essence of life that is timeless, that is ever present, that is formless, that is transcendent of form. It's prior to form. It supersedes form, but it's in all form as well. So that's the vertical plane. So the vertical plane can be thought of as spirit, and the horizontal plane can be thought of as mind. Where they intersect, we have the human experience. Where spirit intersects mind, we have this thing that we call a human life. That's what we experience. The problem is, though, that we get so identified and so caught up in time that we get our whole sense of self from based on time, based on past and based on future. Now, that way of living in the world, I believe, is going to become more and more challenged, more and more difficult to live purely in time, because time is going to become not as predictable as we used to think it was. So, for example, past. Many people have an idea of past and what happened in past through education, through the media, etc. And then we're going to find out, no, it didn't actually happen that way. Not at all. It didn't happen that way. In fact, quite often we're going to find that all our beliefs about past, actually, the truth is actually the opposite of what we believe. So there's a shattering of this illusion of past. And then we have projections into the future. And boy, those projections and predictions just don't work out. They just don't work. They're not of any relevance in the way that the world is transforming. So then we have to say, well, if the past can't be depended upon and the future is so uncertain, where do we go from there? And that's when we connect again to the vertical plane or spirit. So we have mind, and we can still use the mind, we can still remember certain things, and we can still make certain projections, but we don't live there exclusively. As Michelle was saying, the mind is always alternating between past and future, past and future, past and future. And every thought we have is based in time. You can't have a timeless thought. Every thought requires time because the mind requires time. But when you enter the vertical plane, there's a stillness, there's a quietness, there's an emptiness. In the same way, we mentioned on another course that you have a beautiful blue sky in summer, beautiful blue sky, and there's a cloud that passes through the cloud, through the sky. Now, the sky is unaffected by the cloud. The sky is still there. The cloud comes through, and the sky is the space which allows the cloud to pass through. So Pure spirit, or we can call it awareness, we can call it unconditioned consciousness, is the space, the empty space, which allows thinking to happen within its fold. And the problem is that we've got so addicted to thinking that we have forgotten the space that we are. And this space is where we connect with intuition, that deep sense of knowing. And how do we tell the difference between the judgmental mind and intuition? Well, the mind is always polarized. It always has an emotion attached to it, a feeling of I want or I don't want. It is a polarized perception. Where presence, where true intuition comes in, has no emotion. It's just a sense of isness. It's just, yes, that's the way it is. And it's very, very subtle. So unless we are trained to still the mind and to come into this quiet place of being, we're going to miss the quiet voice of intuition. And we need intuition at this time. Albert Einstein said we have within us a sacred gift. We also have a faithful servant. The servant is the mind, and the gift is our intuition. He said we've created a whole society that just honors the servant and has forgotten the gift of intuition, which is what we need to access if we want true discernment.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all been in that state where you've needed to make a decision, you've needed to make a choice, and you kind of literally use the words racking my brains, or I'm really trying to make this decision, or I can't make this decision. And then you might go away, or you might have a shower, or go for a swim, or go for a walk, and suddenly there's just a knowing that, oh, that's it. But what you've done is you've actually quietened that mind. So if you stepped into nature, you've probably quietened the mind. If you quieten your talking, you've probably quietened the mind if you really connected to nature. And in that stepping away from the mind, the guidance that is actually related to this intuition is able to actually come through and give you the answer. But what we often do, especially in this day and age, is we don't have a lot of time to just sit and just be. Because if we're not working, we're on our devices, we're listening to music, we've got everything in the palm of our hand. We're listening to music, watching a video, doing a message to somebody, answering a message to somebody, reading something. So we're filling our minds with more information, and we're actually blocking them. We're blocking our intuition. So we all have that. I mean, we're watching this on a device. So we've all got to be aware that, yes, it's part of our lives, but we have to be the managers of it, because otherwise it's going to take over. And as it takes over, we will be less and less intuitive, because we're not listening. Because we haven't got that space, the blue sky that you spoke about, it's not there. So it's so full of information coming at all directions, we are becoming less able to actually tune in with true discernment. So it's easy to remedy, but we've got to then be aware of the issue. That's the way I'm seeing it. And so we're moving towards this. And the illusions are being shattered left, right, and center, as John said. That's what is happening right now. All the illusions are being shattered. So it brings you into, okay, well, what is true then? Because I've heard so many people say, and I've said it myself, I don't believe anything anymore. It doesn't matter what I read, doesn't matter what somebody tells me. I go, oh, okay, that's interesting, but it might or might not be true. So where do we find the truth? We definitely don't find it from people telling us the truth, or reading the truth, or watching the so-called truth. So where do we find it? So I just see it as making more space to connect with that knowing. Remember the old days when you just sit and watch a sunset or talk and not have any devices or any noise around? That's what we're going back to. You can still have the device, but not let it rule us. Because the more it rules us, the more our true power is actually being dumbed down. So it's up to us to actually take that back, That's also part of Pluto and Aquarius. We're taking our power back to the people, back to me. I choose what I'm going to believe, and I choose to take space from the noise.
Yeah, so true discernment comes not through thinking, but through that quiet space that Michelle was mentioning there, the space between our thoughts. And how do we activate, how do we access that quiet space between our thoughts? Well, there's a very famous story, and there are many like that, of Archimedes trying to work out, I think it was volume. And he couldn't work it out, and he went and took a bath. And he's lying in the bath, his mind recedes, and there's an opening, there's a blankness in his awareness for a moment, lying in warm water. There's a quietness and a calmness, and suddenly this insight drops in. And he jumps out of the bath and runs down the street naked, saying, Eureka! And that's very famous. Now, what happened there? Well, what happened is that he got out of his mind. He went into presence. And we know in our own lives, many of us can attest to this, that you might have a problem or a challenge, and then you're taking a lovely warm shower. And then suddenly, something drops into you. And there it is. It doesn't come in sequentially. It doesn't come in at one little bit of a time. It doesn't come in one word, next word, next word. It doesn't come in bits and pieces. No, it drops in from the vertical plane, drops in its wholeness. It's complete. It's there in that moment. Albert Einstein spoke a lot about that. That's where he got his theories. They dropped in their completeness. He then worked it out mathematically in a linear way. Many famous scientists, Nikola Tesla, spoke about that as well. Many people. That's the field of genius. It's a quiet knowingness in its entirety. And there's no emotion attached to it. There's no sense of right or wrong in that moment. There's just a sense of isness in that moment. So how do we do that? Well, as Michelle was saying, to start to honor the quietness. Start to honor, for example, time spent in nature. That is a big one at this time. We need to connect to nature. So something that AI doesn't have that we do have is life. In fact, we are life. There was a teacher 2,000 years ago that said, the I am is life. And that's the I am that we all are. And nature is completely connected to that I am presence, to life. And so for us to reconnect to this higher intelligence through which discernment flows, we can do that by spending more time in nature, by honoring the quietness of nature. When we're looking at a man-made thing, there's form, there's structure, there's time involved. When you go into a forest, time becomes irrelevant. It's not that important. There's just a sense of isness, of being in that moment. We took a lovely walk through our forest this afternoon on a new trail that we just cut this last week. We live in a community, a spiritual community, and we walked on that. It was just absolutely beautiful. And no judgment. It's just being in the forest. And that opens the mind and allows this quiet, higher intelligence of spirit to flow into our awareness. That's where discernment comes from.
Yeah, also something that I think many of us live in a state of fight or flight. So we're sort of very aware of, we've got to do this, we've got to finish this by then, and there's a deadline, and I have to sort this out, and I haven't got enough time. So we're in that state of kind of high anxiety. Our parasympathetic nervous systems are overwhelmed, overdriven, in overdrive. Cortisol is through the charts when we like that. So when we go into nature, what we're also realizing as we move through this huge change in human consciousness is that we are frequency. Everything is frequency. Everything. So when you realize that you are frequency, basically, essentially, if you strip away the body, you're frequency. And we can choose, and we can change our frequency. So when you go into a forest, for example, you are aligning your frequency with the frequency of nature, of Mother Earth, with the heartbeat of Mother Earth. When you go to the beach, the sea, the sand, the sun, you're connecting with all the elements. We are elemental. We're connected to nature. If you're in water, water has a memory, water has an intelligence. We are connected to that. So when you go, I mean, I said in the forest today when we were walking, I said to my friend, sure, when I'm walking through this forest, it feels like I've had a tranquilizer. It actually feels like I've literally had something which has just calmed my whole nervous system down. It's the colors, it's the green, it's the quietness, it's the no noise, non-mechanical noise. It shifts your frequency. So in shifting your frequency, you're able to connect with that intuitive knowing. Also, what resides in that space is creativity. Creativity resides in the spaces. It doesn't reside here. So the thought or the concept drops in from the space. It doesn't drop in from the mind. So it's for us to actually just pay more attention to our frequency and to just discern, to actually say, it's very interesting. I was there and now I've walked into this area or this place, or I've opened this email, or I'm watching this video, or whatever it is, and I can actually feel my frequency has shifted. I can feel I've gone into an agitated state or a fearful state, or I've gone back in my head and I've gone into a regretful state. It's just to notice it, and then to know that you actually have the ability to bring your frequency back into alignment and to manage it.
Yeah, so the choices made out of mind are always very limited, because the mind is very limited. What we're talking about now is to get into a space beyond mind, which is presence, which is stillness, and to realize that discernment is something that drops into our awareness. It doesn't come from a thought process. It doesn't come from the mind. Judgments come from the mind by a thought process. Discernment is something that drops into the empty space that we have opened up to. And if you haven't got a forest or a sea or an open park near you, then what else can you do? What else? How can you connect to this inner space? Well, we have on our desk right now, as we do this satsang every second Sunday, we have a candle. We light a candle. And you can get into that empty space, which allows discernment to drop into our awareness, by lighting a candle and just looking at the flickering flame. The flickering flame is very, very powerful at cleansing the mind, because it's not a somethingness, it's a plasma. It transcends the solidity of the physical world. And just by watching a flame, a flickering flame, I mean, if you've got a fireplace and you light a fire and just gaze into that fire, that opens the mind. It shifts your awareness from time to presence. Another one, which obviously we mentioned earlier, is showering or lying in a lovely warm bath and just relaxing completely. That's another one.
Or looking at a flower.
Flower is a beautiful way.
Just
Anything
looking
from
at
nature.
a flower, just sitting quietly with the flower or plant and just looking at it.
Yeah.
Just that.
Just being with that
Just
form
being
in
with
that
that
moment.
form.
Not judging and not trying to label it.
Just to noticing its beauty, because when we're noticing beauty, we're in presence.
Yeah.
You can't see beauty if you're not in presence. You're not even going to notice it. You're going to be so in your head that you're going to go straight past it and not even see it.
Yeah.
So the minute we acknowledge beauty, we're in presence. We've dropped in.
Yeah.
And that's the moment. That's the moment of discernment.
Yeah.
So you put an intention out and you say, I need a decision. I need to make a choice of here or here. And then you let it go. And you go into the place, in nature, in stillness, in a meditation, watching a flower, whatever it is, in the bath. And then you just allow whatever arises to arise. And sometimes it will and sometimes it won't at that moment. But then you just allow it again. So you don't then grab it back and say, yeah, I've got to make a decision now. You let it actually come to you.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that, when you're able to spend more time in this present state, we heal, we reboot, we reset ourselves. And so it's really, really important that we do that right now, because the energies out there are big, they're intense, they're fast, know if you've noticed how things have been speeding up. But it's so interesting when you take some time to just be away from all the noise, how time stretches. I mean, yesterday we had a full day. We went and did all sorts of beautiful things, but none of them were time-based. And it's sort of like the day went on and on and on in a really beautiful way. There was enough time to do all the things that we wanted to do and not feel pressurized at all. Because we were in presence. We weren't trying to go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. We were just allowing it to all unfold. So that's the way I believe we're going to get through all of this beautifully and gracefully. Otherwise we're going to be kicking and screaming as we go through all this. So we are also, by the way, we are planning a couple of retreats. So just watch our social media for those. We're planning a retreat in Hogsback. When is that? In May.
Hogsback's in May. We've got before that, we've got in
Buddhist Retreat Centre,
Buddhist Retreat Centre, which is voted one of the top 10 retreats in the world. And then we're also planning one here at our own sanctuary here in the Garden Route in South Africa.
possibly at the end of March.
And those of you
Be a
who
few
aren't
days.
able to physically travel to one of our retreats, we do have an ongoing community called Inner Space, which is all about dropping into that vertical plane of connectiveness to presence, to spirit, Inner Space. And it's just a monthly program. You can join for a month if you like, and just be in this space, be held in a community which are focused on what we're talking about here tonight. We also run 3-month online programs called Journey to Freedom, and we've got one going at the moment. The next one will probably up in about 3 months time or whatever. But Inner Space is accessible to everyone. It's all the details are on our website, Journeys, plural, journeysofawakening.com. And this is a time of importance to honor what we've been speaking about tonight. The world needs those who are awakening. The world needs awakened beings. And the media, unfortunately, and the powers that be want us to stay stuck in fear, when this is a time of awakening to the field of infinite connectivity, which we call love. And love conquers all. And the discernment comes out of that field of love rather than the manipulation of the mind through fear. There's a big difference there. So we have an affirmation card for you, which basically does help still the mind and bring you into the vertical plane. Have you got some cards here? We've got a whole lot of affirmation cards. I'm going to randomly choose one from the pack. I'm going to choose that one over there. Choose that one. It's that one. Oh, got two. Oh, this one. Beautiful. Can you see the color? It's about a purpley one. This is to do with the crown chakra, I think. Hey?
This is also nice.
It's also
Maybe
nice.
I'll put
Another
both
one,
of them.
yellow one as well. I've got two tonight. I was a bit greedy. They both came out together. So they're both beautiful. Michelle's going to do a closing centering meditation and incorporate these in the meditation, and then I'll photograph them, put them up on the page. These are ways of changing the neural nets in our mind so we can perceive a new world. They're both very nice. There we are. Very suitable to tonight's topic.
Good. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. So let's just settle back in if you aren't already, and lean back. Get yourself really relaxed. Take a deep breath in. And then a long, slow out breath, maybe blowing the air out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw. So another deep breath in. And then a long, slow out breath. Let's do that a third time. Deep breath in and a long, slow out breath. And as you breathe out, relax your body. Drop your shoulders, relax your arms, your hands. Feel yourself just coming into this quiet, centered place. Imagine a beautiful, calm pond or lake of water, reflecting the sky above, the trees. And imagine very gently a beautiful feather softly drifting down and quietly settling on the water, very gently. Feel yourself just settle. Allow yourself to stay in this quiet pool of water, in a surrendered place, open, allowing the flow to lead you, fully connected right here, right now, not trying to go anywhere, just like that feather, just gently, gently floating along, surrendering to the flow, allowing your whole nervous system to slow down and drop in. If your mind starts to tell you stories or give you ideas, just set it aside for now and come back to this beautiful still pond, to the feather quietly, gently, just drifting on the water. Imagine being that feather, being held by this calm, peaceful body of water. See if you can surrender even more deeply. See if you can relax and soften your body even more. See if you can open your heart as if you were opening a flower inside your heart space. Softening your heart. Opening completely to this moment. The one affirmation that we got was, I surrender to life right now in this present moment. So feel what it feels like to completely surrender to life right now in this present moment. You might feel a sense of relief. You might feel a sense of release. You may feel a sense of freedom. I surrender to life right now in this present moment. Drop your shoulders even more. Relax even more. Open even more. Notice the breath moving in and out. Notice that life is breathing you. Miraculously, as the outbreath ends, there's another breath ready for you. To come in and fill your body and oxygenate you, keep you alive. Surrendered to life, to live you. The other affirmation that we got was, as I awaken, I love deeply and completely, without attachment or specialness. As I awaken, I love deeply and completely, without attachment or specialness. So I'm one with all. I love deeply this moment. And set an intention now for yourself for this week ahead to drop into this place of presence and peace many, many, many times during the day, whenever it comes to your awareness. Whenever you feel fearful or a little bit stretched or stressed or overwhelmed or confused, just know that a few, 2 or 3 conscious breaths, releasing your shoulders, opening your heart, brings you straight into this place of peace. It's always accessible to us. Now just bringing gratitude into your heart for this evening, this wonderful group of people. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes.
Wasn't that beautiful? It was really lovely. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
2 lovely affirmations that came out of the pack. The yellow one is, I surrender to life right now in this moment. And the other one is, as I awaken, I love deeply and completely without attachment or specialness. I'll photograph those and I'll put those up on the page. Thank you for being with us tonight, and go to journeysofawakening.com if you want to know anything more about what we do or inner space or whatever. Thank you. Thank you all. Love you all.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. How do you turn it off?